Do you know what would be a really stupid idea? Well, first it would be trying to film with the door causing the light to go all funny. But other than leaving the door open, the second really stupid idea would be to build such a wonderful fixture like this, with a 12-inch pivot on here, which uses a bolt mechanism and some springs and all sorts to use a router to cut a perfect radius in my fretboard, and then also to build a jig that could cut lots of radiuses in a piece of wood, so you could cut them out, glue them together, and use them to make a box for clamping the fretboard to the neck. And after this long introduction, the point is, what would be a really stupid idea would be to build this and that without remembering to film it for you. So basically what we've got here is there's the table on top there, and this is connected to some steel sheet which is really rigid, and the distance between the top of the table and the bolt that it pivots on is exactly 12 inches. There's 2 on each side, and the bolts have to be located perfectly in line, so that the top of the table swings, it's a 12-inch radius. The second part of the jig is that the top table is bolted down through the main support into a piece of wood. Now, this block of wood would be freely swinging, and you can see the 2 bolts at the bottom that hold it to the top table, if it weren't for the 2 bolts coming through the side, which are connected on this fixed piece of wood here, so that when you tighten or loosen these bolts, it clamps it against the piece of wood and forces the top table to move sideways. Now, as I do up one of the bolts here, watch the top table. Although you'd simply expect the bolts to force the table sideways, but in fact, because it's mounted on a pivot point 12 inches away, this causes the top table to swing at a 12-inch radius. Then the final part, of course, is I have my router double-sided taped to a flat piece of MDF board, and this just makes the base wide enough to run down the rails. And finally, I make sure all the important faces and sides have been squared up so that the whole fixture is accurate. To start, my bolts are set in the middle position so the top table should be flat. I then plunge my router bit so it just scratches the fretboard and route over the top of it. You could say that this zeroes the fretboard and makes it reliable with the rest of the fixture. So now I can undo the bolts to the 0 position so that the table is all the way to one side and route off the first edge. Because the bolts that we're using, like a lead screw, are a standard metric size, we know the pitch of the thread. This means that we've worked out that for each cut, all you have to do is turn the bolts a whole 2 turns.
1, 2, and route.
During this time-lapse, watch how the fretboard arcs as we move it along. I take the thin cut, move the router to the side, and then turn the bolts a whole 2 turns. The whole thing takes a total of 20 turns, and that the 10th one, of course, sets the workpiece in the middle and routes it parallel with the side rails. And here it is, hot off the router table. Now, to actually properly check whether it's worked or not, I coloured it in with a pencil and then sanded over it with 120 grit paper. You can see where it's taken all the pencil off evenly, that it's in fact the perfect radius and is perfectly flat, so I've actually built something that works! Yay! Re-deepen the fret slots, and to now gluing the fretboard onto the neck. Here is the actual clamping mechanism. It's just a bit of wood going across, and then you can see a bolt going through a steel plate, and then I've chiselled out some of the wood so it will hold the nut still as I spin the bolt round. For the actual structure of it, you can see it's basically just a box. They have 4 identical strips going across, and each one has 2 bolts that go down and clamp. At the base, I actually made my own router circle cutting jig so that I could cut out these 12-inch radius blocks, stick them all together, and that gives something for the radius fretboard to actually locate on. Apply tight bond glue, and we actually rub the fretboard around on the neck to try and get a better contact surface. Not sure if it works. On top of the neck, you can see that where this box was made for flat necks before they've been sanded, we had to make these curved wooden inserts to use for this one-off job. With the bolts hand tightened, we checked the centre line. This is wrong, we actually adjusted it after, of course, and once it was lined up properly, we clamped it down with a spanner. And after all that, I still have a gap between my neck and fretboard. It looks a lot worse here than what it ended up doing. But if anyone watching has any ideas on how to get a perfect seam between your neck and fretboard, please do tell me. But for now, how I solved it was just to thin down some wood filler and shove as much in the gap as I possibly could. was intending on roughly sawing the fretboard off on my bandsaw.
But no, you're not.
But yeah, basically, but because the filler's all over the neck, it's hard to see the transition between neck and fretboard, so I'm going to have to chisel it off. I wish I could cut that quickly in real life. I've got it down rather close. I've got a piece of rubber in the main clamping point, so I'm intending not to dent or damage the neck in the process. I'd finally got round to sharpening the plane blade, so doing this only took seconds. I appear to be having some trouble with the gaps that are left between the neck and the fretboard. And this is because, obviously, on the clamping jig, there are the 4 main points of pressure, where the 4 bolts are, and it's just clamped it down well there, but then it's lifted up in the places where it isn't strongly clamped, so... What I'm just going to do in the meantime, again, is add a load of super glue into the joint and then sand over it. The sawdust that comes from sanding should fill in the gaps, but basically what happens is that the super glue just makes it have a black seam for some reason, but in the end it actually looked a lot better than what it does at the moment, so I'm quite happy with it. And didn't expect that, did you? I'm not the voiceover Jake. Tricked you. Lol. But, what? So basically, if you're watching this video, have been watching it, and are going to continue watching while I'm speaking, what? Then that means that the Les Paul is finished, or about to be finished, because the upload of these videos have been delayed so that I can send you a video every single week at the same time. I don't actually know what time that is yet. I haven't decided. You know, it's backdated. It doesn't matter. I've got ages to decide, so... Yeah, so as soon as I get the Les Paul finished, I'm going to upload these videos every single week, so you won't be going, where's the new video? I've been waiting for it. So it's kind of better for everyone. So, thank you for watching. As usual, please like and comment what you thought of it, whether you thought I should do it differently or how we can improve it, and share it with as many people as you want to, because I have very few views. But, on the upside, here's an outtake. But other than not shutting the door, what would be a really bad idea was to make some wonderful jigs and fixtures like this. What do you call your radius thing, a jig or a fixture?
Actually, technically, it's a fixture, but it's also a jig.
It's a fixture.
A jig is a guide.
What's this?
That's just a box. Clamping box.
Right, I've made a fixture and a box. Okay, right. I'll continue then.
Okay.
Alright.
I'd like to go away and carry on with my work that you're doing.
Go away and build my guitar, yeah.